Today, we're going to look at my internal tool that I've built using Windsurf, V0, etc. So a bunch of tools that I use every day to both do strategic decisions, but also just to brainstorm. And I have one feature that I came across yesterday, need time and time again, which is essentially to combine two sources of AI responses. So I use different tools for different things, and I shared this process here in this video. If you don't want to sit here and watch me do it live, you can check it out here. But essentially going in and asking different models the same thing, right? So here I have perplexity and I have Claude, and I asked about a book that I just read, which is called The Empty Raincoat, which I can only recommend. Very interesting book, probably in the top, I don't know, not top 5, top 10 of books I've read. What I find very interesting is that it's written in 1992, but there's a lot of stuff that kind of resonates with people now and with me now when it comes to AI and kind of finding purpose at work and how to structure work and the movements to, let's say, a portfolio companies, people doing more freelance work, more different projects, rather than basically giving your whole life to like one organization, which is maybe like what our parents have done. So yeah, very interesting. I think almost like before its time, back when it was written. So I wanted to go in and I wanted to summarize the key ideas. So I went and said, which of the ideas from The Empty Raincoat, or no, I didn't want to summarize because I'm going to summarize myself, but I wanted to see from those ideas, which of them actually have been implemented already today. So I went in and I looked at that. Let me actually check something. So I wanted to go in and I wanted to see which of these things have actually been implemented. So which of these things have been implemented? And I asked perplexity first because I wanted to do a deep research. So I used deep research in perplexity, which I think is not as good as in openai. But I don't have access to that because I'm not paying for openai because I barely ever use it. Normally day to day, I use Claude for everything, plus my kind of tool that I built myself, which is from a very interesting article that I came across afterwards. But this article I can recommend. It's called Selfish Software, which is essentially talking about software that used to be too expensive to make for yourself and not worth it to make for yourself, but now you can because you're just vibe coding and everything is like super fast to make. And essentially, yeah, very interesting movement that's going on. People just making software for themselves just to make themselves more productive. So this is not something I intend to sell to anyone, but it's just for me and the team internally to use. And what I noticed though with these responses was that Claude was kind of short. So I was like, okay, give me more depth on all of them. And what I've noticed is that Claude actually did a better job than perplexity, even though it was deep research. But there is value in perplexity because you have citations, so you have sources, and those sources you can use to dive deeper, which you don't have in Anthropic. You saw my cost there. I shared that before, that's why that was still open. And so the point that I'm trying to make, and then we can start kind of diving into this, is essentially I want to build a feature to do that in my tool, right? So right now you can use Claude in the tool and you can use like thinking mode or not, and you can use perplexity and you can use deep research or not. These are just very simple kind of API implementations. But what I want is I want to be able to, and let's already throw that in here. I'm looking to build a feature to essentially take the responses of different AI models. So I want to prompt 3 different models, let's say, with the same prompt, in the same context. Or for perplexity, if I use perplexity, just send the last query, not all of it. You can look at the already existing implementation of the perplexity API that is in the chat route. It's implemented as a tool. You can use that and look at that and mirror the implementation of that. And I want to take the responses of different models. So I want to be able to add models starting with 2, and I want to be able to add a 3rd or a 4th if that's applicable to the use case. And I want to use Claude, I want to use Perplexity, and I want to use OpenAI for now. So these 3. And then I want to query all of them, and I want to synthesize the response from all 3. I want to pick the best parts out of all 3. So this is a feature I'm adding to a custom Claude tool that I've built. And you should help me create a PRD for this feature. So essentially what I'm doing is I'm telling by using something called Super Whisper. It's just like an speech-to-text tool, which is quite handy because it essentially integrates with your computer and it just puts stuff where your cursor is once you're done talking to it. So essentially just inserted everything in here. And I'm gonna select a tool here that is to make PRDs, right? So essentially I'm making a product requirements document, if you never heard what a PRD is, and I am using that to feed that into Windsurf, which is what I use to implement the features. Sometimes I use V0, so we could like prototype in V0, and for the sake of argument, we can do that here as well, just to see how it looks like. But then in V0, it becomes quite a pain in the ass to add the backend functionality, and the front end isn't super complex. So I would say the right course of action here for me, because it's already an existing project as well, is to just dive into Windsurf and provide the source to whatever this thing shits out here. Just provide that to Windsurf and then see what happens, because that V0 step would be unnecessary. If the UI would be more complex, I think it makes sense to go to V0 and maybe iterate in V0 first. But this, I think, will just be a simple modal, and then I select the models. I get to see the responses of each model, and then I get to see a synthesized response of all of the models. That will happen by feeding the results of all 3 or whatever many models I choose to another call, and then have that output a synthesized summary or whatever. I don't know yet what that's going to look like, but that should be quite straightforward. And then I have a button at the bottom that essentially will insert that synthesized response as a message into the chat that I'm in, so that then I have added that information to the context of the conversation, and I can continue to ask like questions, for example, right? So let's create this PRD. We are not going to use Perplexity. It doesn't make sense. We're going to use Claude. Maybe we can do thinking enabled as well to make it a bit smarter. And this is kind of like feature/code related, so maybe it will help if we need to generate code snippets, for example, because that's what the reasoning stuff is good for. Let's see. All right, so it's preparing quite a big plan here for reasoning. Let's see if that's accurate. All right, that took like quite a while. I don't know if Claude the API is under a lot of pressure. I don't know. But let's see. This PRD outlines the requirements, new feature, multiple AI models, querying, same prompt, compares response, and synthesizes best of response that leverages the unique strengths of each model. Initial implementation, Claude, Perplexity, OpenAI, that's correct. Yeah, easy addition of new models, always useful. User story requirements, perplexity. Okay, I mean, this sounds pretty good. This is there's some stuff in here that's probably irrelevant, and some stuff that's missing that I described without talking to the thing. So let's add that. All right, so what I want in the design is essentially another button next to the Claude and Perplexity chooser in the UI. So there's already an existing UI element that I have that I want to add this next to, and it just is called synthesize. So it's a button that's called synthesize, or the title of the button or whatever. And then when I press that, a modal opens. So I have this overlay or dialogue, and then in that dialogue I get to choose the models, and then when I choose the models, they underneath there's a text field with the response that comes out of the synthesis, and I want to also be able to review each individual response of the model just to see what they responded with, just to make sure that one, it's an accurate response, there's no technical issues in that prompt. And then I also want to, or in the response, and then I want to just maybe poke around in there, see what happened in the background. And then at the bottom, the synthesized response, and then there's a button at the bottom in the dialogue that is insert into conversation or insert into chat or something. So what happens then is that when I press that, the synthesized response gets added to the chat that I'm in right now, and that means that I can use it as context for the rest of the conversation. Let's add that to the PRD. All right, so what I'm doing now is I'm essentially refining the PRD, just add more information to make it more holistic, because I already kind of know what I want. If I wasn't sure, what I would do is I would just give less context, and then I would go into V0 and I would come up with some sort of initial version, and then I would go in and I would refine it. So if you don't know what you're looking for yet, then you don't have to add as much context, because then you can have the AI guess, basically, right? So you could say follow best practices of UI design or whatever, and then that would be your first version, and then you start iterating based on that. But because I already know kind of what I want, like I already kind of envision that, I think it's useless to go that step, as I was saying before, right? Okay, so system compares the responses. This hasn't really changed. All right, so essentially what it did, it added like a user story. Okay. Right, I think this is good enough. So let's go in and essentially, and this is a feature of this tool that I've built, and I don't think we need thinking anymore. It's essentially to, or just leave it on, whatever. It's just more expensive. We'll go in and we say prompt generator. So this will create is supposed to be for V0, a prompt that encapsulates all the learnings and all the context out of the PRD. And what that does is it lets us create something for Windsurf or V0 that has all the information and makes it very unlikely that it will fuck around too much, right? Like we'll give it so much context that it's almost impossible for it to go off the rails. I mean, it still might, but it's just safer this way. And what we also did is we actually thought through a couple different angles of the problem, right? So it helps us kind of brainstorm and helps us kind of put everything there and not just say like, write one sentence, because this is what happens when I just write with Windsurf or Cursor or whatever, right? It's all the same shit. It's just like, build this thing for me, and then it goes and it creates something stupid, because why would it know what to do? Like it doesn't. So this gives us the chance to kind of push it into the right direction, and it gives us a chance to think about it, right? And maybe come up with other ideas. Or maybe now what we could also do is we could say, is there any tool here that's useful for that? I don't think so. All right, so let's just ask it like, how could I make this feature better, right? So we could ask it like, hey, help me figure out ways to improve this. What are features that are missing? Or how can I make this simpler? Or how can I, just make it more useful? And I mean, this feature, again, is like, for the sake, it's not super crazy, so there's not a lot we can do here, but let's see what it responded with. Powerful, user-friendly, valuable. Okay, so it says rule-based combination. So I guess what it thinks of right now is that there will be a rule-based synthesis. So this means that's not what I want. So that's something I haven't properly communicated. Synthesis styles. Okay. Different synthesis styles could be interesting. We could add that. Prioritize certain qualities. I mean, this is actually pretty good, right? So these styles, they could help. And I don't think they're super hard to add, because it's essentially just if there is an AI-powered synthesis, which was the goal from the beginning, these are just things that go into the prompt. And it's very simple to change, and it's also very simple to send along, and it's very simple to integrate into the UI, because it's just a select or whatever, like some input. And so this is a good candidate to actually add right away. Granular configurations. Yeah, I mean, configurations are interesting, but I would rather go and essentially decide that in the backend, what's useful. But this could be useful depending on the use case, right? So it could be you want a very creative response. If you're doing something like brainstorming or something, then a creative response could be useful, which is like, I think, temperature, right? Like if you go up with the temperature of the model, then that becomes more creative. Or if you go down and it becomes very predictive. Almost, it's not predictive, but like it becomes more predictable what it responds with. Interactive. Yeah, so a lot of like pretty good ideas, honestly. A lot of it is like goes too far for a first version. Like I want to keep this rather lean, because I don't want to spend 2 days on this feature. But I think let's give it some more instructions. All right, let's add the AI part synthesis. That was supposed to be there the whole time. I guess that kind of got lost in translation somewhere. So definitely make sure it's AI powered, and then also add the synthesis styles, because I think they're very useful and they should be easy to implement. And then just pass that essentially to the AI powered synthesis as part of the request body that we send whenever we do the synthesis, whenever we kick that off, right? So, and that's another thing we don't have yet. Like there needs to be a button after I've picked the models and inserted the prompt at the top that lets me run this synthesis flow And so let's add that, make that more explicit. And then let's add those styles in a appropriate way. So I guess this will just be a form. And within that form, we can just have selectors or inputs. Pick something that is appropriate to show these UI elements. All right, so another kind of iteration based on what information I already brought, and then AI recommendations, how we can improve this feature specifically, right? And again, like always use like common sense, you know, like we don't want to do all of this because it's very unlikely that we need all of it to get it out. And it's also not very likely that Windsurf will be good at following instructions if it's too many things, right? So there was something like keyboard shortcuts or tabbed interface or scoring molds or learn user preferences. Like these are all useful, but if I were to create just a one-shot prompt for Windsurf to implement this with all these features added, it won't work. Like it will just produce something stupid, which is to be expected, you know, because it's like if you go to a junior developer and you tell them, here's one big feature, but it has 20 sub features, and I want you to implement all of them. And I want you to implement them all in like at the same time, you know, like they're gonna get confused because it's like, okay, what the fuck? Like what am I supposed to start with? You know, like that's the first thing that they will probably ask themselves or you. And so just think of it as that, like it needs to be stirred properly, you know, like it's not an end all be all. It's just a crutch for you to move faster, but you have to do the thinking, and then you can use it as a crutch again to help you think better, which is what I did, right? So that is kind of the point, and not like AI make me a millionaire, you know, which is kind of like the shit that's out there, most of the content that's out there, which is like what honestly just kind of pissed me off. But yeah, I'm going on a rant, so let's continue. All right, so we have an approved thingy. We can go in and we can ask again, hey, what else could we improve, right? But then it's just gonna give us the response it gave us before, minus what we've implemented. So I think that is fine. One other tool that I have here that could help is Persona. Okay, so I have another tool here, just a system prompt. And if you want any of these system prompts, like most of them are on here. I think this one is the one that I'm using now. This is called bestclaudprojects.com. I'll also link that in the recording afterwards. But it's essentially just another tool that I've built with Windsurf. Like I've not written any code for this, that has these prompts so that you can use them as system prompts also within Claude projects. So if you go on Claude, you have, or also I think in GPT, they now have projects. I haven't looked at GPT for a while, but essentially if you go in, you can create a project and you can put project knowledge, and this is called project instructions. But essentially, if you're a bit technical, you know like what system prompts are, I hope. And those help to set the baseline functionality for the tool. And that's essentially what I'm doing, right? So this is just like the same thing within that kind of custom implementation that is just, like project knowledge or project instructions. And technically it's essentially what it is a system prompt on the API layer, like on the API level, right? But what we can do now is we can say persona simulator, and that is essentially just a tool that creates 10 different personas so we can get user feedback on this feature. This is something I don't always do because I mean, this shit's just for me. So why would I do that? I'm the only person, you know, that needs to evaluate if this makes sense or not. But if I am building a product, I'm building something that I'm going to give to other people, this is a step that could be interesting to do. And so I now switched the system prompt to be this thing, and I can go ahead and say, go ahead and create 10 different potential user profiles that could use this feature within the tool and give me their opinion on the feature and anything that we can maybe improve from their point of view. No, I wasn't in the focus thing here. All right, so now we have this tool, and this tool is there to generate different views of people. I can tell them, like I can tell the tool to create as many as I want, and then it will go in and we'll create 10 user profiles. Now this is quite broad, right? But it essentially gives you ideas who could use this and what their feedback might be. So it says, it gives you that background and it gives you their opinion, right? So it says, use AI to help analyze research papers and generate literature review summaries. It says the synthesis feature is revolutionary. So it's definitely some AI bullshit. For my literature review, I appreciate how the comprehensive style captures nuances from each model, blah, blah, blah. Right. So it's overall, it gives you different opinions. And then it gives you a common themes, or it's supposed to give you like a synthesized response out of all of them. And it gives you common improvements, right? So it says, many want domain-specific synthesis styles, academic, medical, legal, educational code, integration capabilities. Yeah, fine. I mean, who doesn't want that? For anything. Agreement, disagreement. Okay. That's pretty interesting. Like, where are these models kind of diverging from each other? Because that means one of them must be wrong, hallucinating maybe, I don't know. But if it comes up with shit and that's not provable across the board, then there must be something weird, or it's just a topic that needs to be interpreted by people, which then would flag that for me and be like, hey, this is something you should probably dive into deeper. What else? Drag and drop. Some users, overwhelming, simplified. So this is like, maybe give use cases what you want to do. You want to do academic research, or you want to write code or whatever, and you want all three models to produce something, synthesize it, and then that could be a mode where we say, instead of picking the models by hand, I say like, what's your use case? And then you pick the use case and I select the models in the background, because I know if you want to do news research, we don't have to ask Claude that's trained like 6 months ago, because that's useless, right? But we want probably anything web scraping enabled, like Perplexity or some of the other ones that are actually gathering data from like scraping. So it would help non-technical users to use it without needing to know what model does what thing, right? So like, which model is best for what. But because I'm the user, I don't care, because I know what they're doing, and I know, like, I want full control rather than having something abstracted, because I know how to use it, right? And so that means I don't care, so I can ignore it. I mean, whatever the thing says, you know, like, you don't need to follow what it says, which is like what I feel like a lot of people are doing. They're just like, oh, the AI said I should be doing this, like, let's do it, you know. But where's the common sense or like critical thinking in that? And that is just like something you need to continue to do, because that's literally, if anyone can write code, that's literally the only thing that will like set you apart from others, right? Is that you have some sort of insights, or that you have critical thinking skills, and you take all the input. Like with AI, essentially, it's like brainstorming is like discovery. So like you're discovering everything that's possible, but then you need to narrow it down to everything that's useful. You know, like you don't want all of it. You need a specific type of subset that is useful in what you're trying to achieve, right? All right. So I don't care about that. Source citation, verification. All right. So because it's quite broad, right? Like we have UX researchers, we have small business owners, we have legal professionals, we have high school teacher. Like the feedback is quite like widespread. So there's like non-technical users or there's technical users, and they need different things. So I think what could be useful, and we can do the same thing with this tool as well, is like, okay, let's narrow this down to a specific type of user, because I don't necessarily need everyone's input. I need the right person's input, right? And this is essentially like, it's a horizontal feature. Like everybody can use this. And this is when you hear people be like, oh, everybody can use my software. Yeah, they can, but why would they give a shit? You know, if there's other options that are better tailored to what they are trying to achieve. And we're not going to make everyone happy. So essentially we need to be opinionated to some extent and say, let's narrow this down of user. Right now I'm the user, and sometimes I type if I'm too stupid to press the right buttons and I forget to talk. But it's rare because I'm lazy and I do it like that. And I like to talk, honestly. Like, I don't know why, but sometimes I do, especially about stuff that I'm interested in. So nothing wrong with that. Right now, I'm the user, and I expect other people just like myself to use, if any others, because I have built this for myself. All right, and then, do you know who I am? So I'm not sure if it has the right context. It could have the right context, but I think maybe not. Let's see, we could do. All right, I guess it doesn't know who I am, but it kind of knows that I'm a power user and a developer, which is probably fine. All right, now just give me one opinion. Give me a total of 10 opinions. But I want 10. I don't want just my own. I want 10. Let's see if that was specific enough or if I'm too stupid. But yeah, so now I get 10 opinions of power users, AI power users, and developers on this feature. So this is more narrow, and it is more in line with my perfect or target user, not my perfect user. All right, they all say like, this is exactly what I built for myself, which is kind of funny, kind of a developer thing to do, honestly. Okay, so they say they care more about like the visualization part and the performance and advanced control. So this is literally what I was saying before. It's like, for a non-technical user, you wanted to make it as simple as possible while the tool does as much heavy lifting as possible, right? So you just make it magic. You say, what do you want to do? You want to do research? Okay, let me pick like the 3 best models for you that are good for a research use case. Versus like a technical user that's just like, I know all these things. Let's just give me full control. I mean, even for those users, it could be interesting to have this kind of pre-filling of like models based on the use case, but I think they care less. You know, they for them, that's how you can think about it. Like for them, it's essentially an add-on. So they need the full control, but if you can give them an add-on and you say, hey, here's an abstraction that I made for you, they'll take it maybe. But with the other one, it's with the non-technical user, it's rather like, if you don't give them this abstraction, they don't know how to use the tool because they don't know what these models are. So they just get confused and they just churn, right? So essentially they need that abstraction first and foremost, and then the full control becomes a nice to have, versus the other way around where the full control is necessary to have and the other stuff is nice to have. So it kind of reverses the roles of those features essentially. But yeah, so now we're gonna go in and we're gonna do v0 prompt. So essentially I say, give me the prompt for this PRD. So in the system prompt, we're now going not PRD generator, but v0 prompt generator. It's essentially read the PRD, so whatever we have created, and then look at key information and write a prompt for the implementation. So now we're moving from discovery and brainstorming, which the project manager might do, or the product manager rather. Now we're moving into implementation. And if you can do both, that's really powerful, because then the feedback loop is much shorter and there's less communication overhead. You don't need to meet, you don't need to talk. You can just do it all yourself, which is kind of like a competitive advantage over other people, But yeah, so let's go back to this. It gives me a prompt, and it has essentially all the instructions, right? Essentially, synthesize button position next to the existing Claude and Perplexity model chooser in the main chat UI. So that's essentially what I told it. I was like, hey, there's this shit here. This is already there. That's where I want it. I want it next to it. That, I don't know if that's where it's going to stay, but that's the first kind of spot that I think makes sense. And then it has all the information. When clicked, the button opens in modal. So now it's almost like, if Windsurf fucks this up, then I know it's not because I gave it missing context, right? I think there's one thing that it can fuck up, which is essentially like API integrations. It likes to fuck up because I use the Vercel AI SDK. So that's something, but that's something we can find out as well, right? We can say, how can I improve this prompt to make it better for the AI tool, make it better / easier to implement. Let's see if it can come up with something. So now essentially our user, or shifting from the user, what's easier for the user to use the tool with or whatever, we're shifting to Windsurf as the user of this prompt, where we're asking like, how can you make this better for the tool? How can you make it easier, right? So what does it say? Right, so now it gives us an improved prompt with a lot more detail, I guess. And it like responsive behavior, accessibility, colored highlights of attribution, use simple text. Okay, and then it has some like, here it says the things that it did, right? Clear structure, explicit sections, accessibility guidelines, consistency references, technical scope, logical flow. Okay, I almost feel like this is all like too much, to be honest. I think the stuff we had before, but if there was something in here and you said like, hey, this is definitely something I need, or what I need to do. But what I want is to just take what's here. So we'll take the prompt that I shit out in the beginning, and we'll go into Windsurf. And what I always do, if it's a new feature, I always create, that's the first thing, I always create a new chat, because then it's more focused and it doesn't have any, there's less chances that it goes off the rails, right, with this stuff. I use Sonnet 3.7. It's, if you steer it right, it's good. If you give it shitty instructions, I think 3.5 is better, because there's less chance it will go off the rails and implement a bunch of stuff you haven't asked for. That is like the main problem that I see with 3.7. But because we have a good prompt and we have good context, we're less likely for that to happen. And then 3.7 is better because it keeps working for longer. So I don't have to keep prompting it all the time, which I guess is based on your preferences. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. So you have to decide that for yourself. If you get distracted while it does something, then it might be better to have a shorter leash. But let's see. All right, let's go in here, and we said this is the prompt, and then what I want to give it is some more context. Use the same style of implementation for the AI calls that are already being used in a chat. So I'm going to give it some more context. I'm going to give it the route for the chat, because there we already have this going on. So we have the API route, chat routes. We have crawling as a tool, for example, but we also have, and that's not relevant, we have where's that shit? We have perplexity. So we have a call to perplexity here, and I want that thing to use exactly the same approach. Generate text, which is from the AI SDK. And then I also want to use openai. Do we already have this in here? Yeah, so we already have all three here, which should be fine. But I say this using the Versal AI SDK. So we added that. I could have also added that in the PRD, in the stack or something, but I forgot. So now we do it here. And now we will just press enter, and we'll see what it does. We can follow the reasoning or whatever it does here. This is like something that changed with, I don't know if it's just 3.7, but it's consuming a lot more of these flow credits. So essentially every time it looks at something, it just looks at parts of the file, and every time it consumes like 1 credit. So it gets quite expensive, especially if you always make a new chat. Because if you stay within the same chat and it reads the file, then it already knows the structure, for example, and it doesn't need to do that again and again and again. But again, it's like, if you risk going off the rails, otherwise it's useful to do it like this over going off the rails. That's how I see it, at least. Well, let's see. But yeah, I'm getting distracted, as you can see. Oh yeah, you can already see kind of how long it just goes on. Synthesize button, API endpoint. We can look at what it's doing here. Synthesize response. Model response. Okay, so it does it in 2 different API calls, which I feel like might be unnecessary, to be honest. But what does it do here? but it did stick to the information. So it did stick to generate text. Model responses. So that's something we probably could have done better. To note that we want to pass these model names from the UI, because I want to be able to just pick any OpenAI model, not just GPT-4o. If I want like reasoning capabilities, for example. But we can do that in the next step once we know that we have something. Yesterday and today, it's been failing to edit files quite a lot, which I don't know why, but that's been something that's been annoying. Let's call it that. But this is what I meant when I said it goes on for longer. So I think the output of 3.7 is much longer, the output token limit. So now it just is done. If it was done, it would give you like an overview of what has been done, and it isn't because it just failed. Let's see what we have here. It should be in the chat. So there's no button here yet. Yeah, so now it's adding the button in the chat interface. If this works with one shot, that'd be pretty cool. But we'll see. One shot and one time's asking if you're done, if it's done. Yeah, so another thing I've noticed is like if the file gets big, it gets in trouble sometimes. Because now it's like this file is 1,300 or more lines. All right, so now it says like I've completed doing this, which means that now it's done. At least it thinks it's done. We'll see if it's actually done, but let's see what it looks like. All right, so we have a synthesize button here, which is exactly what I told it to do. I wanted it next to this thing on the right, but I wasn't clear enough. We can fix that. We'll press this. Okay, so now it asks us, right? If we don't have one model, it's not even going to do it, which is fine. Synthesis style, but I can't press into the prompt field, so that's not that useful because that's the main fucking thing I want to do. But let's fix that. All right, so we'll go back. We say, hey, I can actually enter the prompt in the prompt input. So the feature is kind of useless. Let's fix that. And then we'll do the rest. It needs some polish, but let's start there. All right, so I was about to tell it to do multiple things at the same time, which isn't useful, I think, because it just more likely will do something else. So again, just kind of how do you use this tool? Do like one change at a time, and that's again something like if you have a junior developer or someone you're giving work to, then giving them one instruction or one thing to change over 20 will make it more likely you'll get what you want. All right, let's see what the motherfucker did here. Prompt. Where even is it, dude? Current prompt. Okay, so I guess this isn't even a text field. But yeah, so that's what I meant. Now it's like doing changes to the API, which is not something I asked for. I think this was something that was in the initial PRD that we want to pass the context of the conversation, but it's not something I asked for now. So essentially it must have noticed that that wasn't actually covered before. And I guess this is probably something like a setting we want. Like we don't always want to pass all the previous context of the conversation, but it can be useful because it will give us better responses if what we're asking is not a standalone problem we're trying to solve, but it is something that is based on the rest of the conversation, right? So that could be useful sometimes, but then other times it's just unnecessary cost for the API. Okay, let's see. Yeah, I guess it's still not doing that. Let's be more explicit. Make the current prompt an input field of type text. Otherwise, I can't actually add. All right, so it did a bunch of other shit, but it didn't actually do what I asked it to do. So that's what I was talking about with 3.7, that has become a problem, but I guess I wasn't explicit enough. So it's always like, or most of the time, it's like user error. And the error is essentially not giving enough context to do a good job, which is just, again, like I keep coming back to this analogy, but it's just like, if you have a junior developer and you tell them like, go do this thing, you know, they will probably fuck it up. You need to give more information, or you need to be able to rely on them to take your thing and run with it, which this thing here can't. But if you have a good person and they just kind of work their way through the problem, that's possible, but it's not easy, and you risk getting a wrong result because that's purely subjective, you know, like you're not stirring the person properly, so you just leave a lot up for interpretation, and then this makes it harder to get the right thing. Okay, so now I did this, and let's see what we can do. Let's try these two models because they respond faster than Perplexity for now, just to see just to see if it works. What is the weather right now in Lightning? All right, so it has some sort of loading indicator. We'll have a synthesized response. Okay, this is exactly what I expected. The individual responses. I don't have the ability to check the weather, and OpenAI said the same thing. We can go to BBC weather, but yeah, synthesized response. Okay, both responses say the same thing. I think this we can improve, right? Now if we add perplexity, let's say what it does. I guess I can't run it again. Which might be a useful feature. Let's see. Hey, make it able to run the whole thing again. So to run the synthesis again after I add a new model at the top. If the user isn't happy with the response that we got out of it, just so that we can make sure they can play around with the models, and then before they insert the thing into the conversation. Well, that was pretty bad context, but let's see what it does. Okay, it should have added a run again button, which is here. So now that we've changed this, let's see. Run again. Okay. Now we have two buttons here. I don't know why, but let's see. So now I think we should get a response, because perplexity should give us what we want to know, but it doesn't. So let's see. Okay. So it uses the wrong model. And now I'm not going to go in and ask AI to fix it, because it is too stupid to do this kind of stuff. But I'm going to use what I already have here, Sonar. All right, so it's called Sonar Pro. What you could do is you could put that here and say this is the actual model name, but then you wait 20 minutes for it to change something that is very fast to change yourself. So I'm going to do it like this. Let's try that again. So it was just the wrong model name, which is often with stuff that changes a lot or changes fast, that it will just not have up-to-date information on the model names, for example. All right, so now we have Perplexity gave us a response. OpenAI has a response. Claude, so that they are the same, right? They still don't know what the fuck's happening, but all right. So we have information, which I feel like is not accurate, because how warm is it here? It's 6 degrees, so I don't know where the fuck that information is coming from. Let's see, perplexity. All right, so interesting. Nowhere here it actually says that it's. Oh no, here it is. Okay. What if we go to perplexity directly? What is the weather in Leiden? So we're just validating if it actually works, because here it says 6 degrees. So that's interesting, which is accurate. I think it is 6 degrees. Curious to know why the fuck it says 17. But yeah, that is something we have to figure out. All right, but what I'm also not happy with, I mean, this is separate prom. We waited longer, so it should be working properly. Perplexity, because that takes by far the longest. But what I wanted is to use different models, right? That was one thing. But also, I'm not super happy with the report. Maybe this is a shitty topic, but I want to see a good synthesis, like where it has a better highlighting of the different answers. Right now that seems to come out quite flat, but that's also because we had windsurf write the prompt for the synthesis. just to see. Okay, common themes, personal journey. Not a bad. Perplexity points out. Alright, so I guess it is included. It says like, oh, both Claude and OpenAI mentioned this. Individual responses. Okay, so this is quite short. We were, say, like, give me a comprehensive answer or something. Maybe that's something we should add in the backend by messing with the prompt, because the people already inserting this here, so that could be in the backend added to the prompt to make it better. But what I want to try is I want to go in and go back to the tool, because that has more context here. And then I have this PRD prompt generator. So that's, and again, you can find all these tools here, PRD prompt generator. So now we have a tool that's specifically made to write a prompt for the AI workflow that is in the PRD. So that should give us, because it's specialized, should give us a better better output. So give me the prompt that covers the synthesis that we have discussed. Alrighty. So now, what is this? Create a system. How does this not what I wanted? So there's something I still need to improve. So sometimes it gets confused because now it created a system prompt or a V0 prompt, but I wanted a prompt for the workflow. So there's some overlap here in the context and in the rest of the conversation that kind of confuses it between like the V0 prompt and then the actual workflow prompt. So that's something I need to improve in the system prompts of these tools, but that's for another day. I don't want to have the V0 prompt. I want to have the prompt for synthesis workflow. So I'm gonna just tell it that I want something else, even though it shouldn't know this. Sometimes it's just dumb. Yeah, this is what I want, right? I want to have everything in here. And I want to use this as the prompt for whatever is happening in Windsurf, right? So we have the combine prompt, and you can see how much more comprehensive this is. Look how short this thing is here. Synthesis instructions. So it's a much more comprehensive prompt for the workflow that we're building because it has more context, and it also only does one thing, right? Like we don't tell it like implement this and do this and do this and do this and do that. It's just, okay, here's all the context. Now give me the prompt, which is a much more clearly scoped and sandboxed like process, which makes it more likely that the AI will generate something good over something very diluted, right? So now we give that and we say, this is the system prompt that I want to use for the synthesis of prompt responses. Different prompts. Make sure it integrated into the current flow is there because the flow itself works fine. I could take this one step further, I just noticed, and have the Claude tool generate the instructions for windsurf every time, but I feel like, I don't know, maybe something I'll look at in the future. Another thing that could be interesting to explore is for the synthesis to use different tools, like different models, let the user choose. But I don't want to go like too far today. I actually need to eat something. Also need to do something else. Alright, let's see. Helper function. Okay, so we have a synthesis thing. So now you can see this is much more comprehensive prompt, which is interesting. Doesn't actually use this, which is fucking stupid, but okay. So it added a helper function, but it's not using this variable here. It just added like all the synthesis styles here. Or maybe it's gonna still do this. No, it's done. Okay, we can say instead, because this is gonna cost us money, right? It's tokens, input tokens. Hard coding all the synthesis styles, use the variable, or I will get fired. No, you fucker. All right. Yeah, sometimes, and again, analogy, junior developer, sometimes it does stupid shit, but sometimes it also just knocks it out of the park. So again, just use some common sense, right? So now we have used a variable, and it will only use the one that I actually asked for, and not all of them. And now we can go in and this is the wrong thing. Here. Wait. All right. Synthesize. Let's just do these two. What are the main takeaways of the empty raincoat? Okay, so this is interesting. I need to fix that up. So essentially it has all the stuff when I open the modal from the last time, which I don't want, but because it's reusing the same component, we need to tell it to clear it up, maybe every time we open it or something. Okay, Shamrock donut. Okay. Individual responses, Claude. Okay, so Claude has 6 points, and OpenAI has 7. I'm still not super happy with what's different and the same. So let's see, let's go back here and say highlight in synthesis what has been a common theme across models and what is different. So essentially, I want to know where the differences are and where the same problems are or the same responses are. Okay, so now it added this explicitly So what we're gonna do is just take this and copy paste it, starting with 0.4. Okay, I think 0.4 is still the same, but doesn't matter. All right, so I think this should be okay in terms of functionality. But what I was saying was that I want the thing to open empty, or I don't know. I mean, it doesn't really matter, honestly. It depends, but I think kind of yes. But also what I want to test is if it does this. Okay. So it just inserts it here, and then you have to send it again. But that I think is okay, because then you can go in and you can actually edit it. You could, because you can't edit it here. So if there's something you want to delete, I think it's worth the extra click to do that. But what's dumb is the prompt's empty, but the rest is still like set, which is pretty stupid. So let's fix that. Hey, let's fix that. Whenever I enter the modal, after I insert something into the chat, or just whenever I open it, just make sure that it's cleared and reset to a default state, which is Claude and Perplexity being selected, and everything else is empty. Yep, let's do that. Okay, just added a bit more context that I'm just talking about the modal before it goes at and change something else. See if it happens again. Balanced. Okay, I also need to get rid of this button because it doesn't make any sense. All right, consensus. All right, so now we can see, which is interesting, we can actually see where they agree and then what's unique to either response. And so here you can see how it helps to have the models combined, right? Because if I was only to use Claude, I would be missing everything that's unique here. And if I was only to use Perplexity, I would miss everything that is unique to Claude. And that's literally the point of the thing, right? All right, let's say insert into chat. And that's how we can get that into the conversation. And then we can continue to take it from there, just add it to context, right? That's the feature in itself. Okay, some more smaller things we're gonna do. And move the synthesize button in the chat UI to the left of the thinking toggle. Right now, that is not the right place to put it. We can kill this. It's probably just gonna make it confusing. Synthesize. All right, so that's still fine. So yeah, this is another thing where now it's going like on forever. And it would probably been easier change to make by hand. Because it's not that hard to move this somewhere else. Another thing I've noticed is like, this shit's burning through my charge, my battery really fast. I don't know if it's just windsurf, or I mean, I'm also streaming, I guess, so probably doesn't help. But yeah, man, what are you doing? Yeah, that's what I meant. Like, this would have been such a simple change to make by hand. And that's the kind of danger too, right? Like, we get kind of lazy and then we just want to prompt everything, but it doesn't really make sense in this use case or in this example. This is my nightmare phrase when it says I see the issue now, and then it just does something completely stupid, and it doesn't actually fix anything. Just like it didn't fix anything now because something's fucking broken. But yeah, what I do in that case is usually I just go and I confirm, revert. We should have also let's see where that button is. Synthesize button here. Right, so this is the change we need to make, right? We need to take the button and we need to put it here. So that was all I had to do. Again, just use your brain, you know. Does it actually make sense or does it not? But usually what I do, I go in between and I press this and I look at the PR. Like, I open a PR actually for myself, I guess, just to make sure everything looks good. But one more thing I want to add, and then I'm done, is essentially, let's just YOLO this. So now you can open a branch, a PR, review it properly, or you can just commit these responses, which we're gonna do because I'm too lazy right now to do it properly. But oh yeah, this button I wanted to. Where is it? So this is another thing. Like, before I tell the thing this is where the button is, like, remove it, I will just, I guess if you're non-technical, you just have to do it. But if you know what you're doing, then I think there's no point. But no, I also need to find it. Button is running. Okay, so here, run again. Is it this? Okay, so it's that button. I guess it has another button here. Okay. Let's just make sure it's still works, the rest. Okay, that looks good. The modal could be tweaked, right? So this is kind of odd that that disappears when I scroll around, but I don't really care a lot. Okay. What did I want to do? All right. Last thing we're gonna do. All right, help me let the user select the model that they want to run for each provider. Let's pick a sensible default for the model. So let's say for Sonnet, we have 3.7 or 3.7. For OpenAI, we have 4.0 Mini. And for Perplexity, we have Sonar Pro. But with the chance to switch the model for each of them, and I will provide you a list of models that is proper for each provider. from the model name, you should be able to infer which AI provider belongs to. All right, so now we have Sonnet. Now we have Claude. We need to go all Claude model names. Honestly, I feel like Sonnet is actually the only one that we want. Could do Haiku. So let's just, we will do this. I guess I am telling it now what's what. But Opus, I don't know, I never used that, to be honest. Sonnet. What should we do? Latest everywhere. Latest. We should also support thinking. And we already have a route here where thinking is implemented, because that's what I use when I when I press this. And then we have Sonnet. It's only Sonnet 3.7, so it doesn't support it for all the models, which we need to keep in mind. OpenAI, what do we want? We want O3 Mini for sure as well. GPT 4.5, so we can fucking get broke. No, let's not do that. Real time. What are the fucking names, dude? Promise this is not something we can ask AI because it's just gonna make it up. So let's start with GPT 4.0, GPT 4.0 Mini, O3 Mini. 4.5 could be interesting, but it's too expensive. Okay, let's just open this in the playground. Then we'll have the model names. O3, O1. We have. I cannot fucking copy the name. No, I can't. Okay, let's say here code. All right, so here we have the model name. I will give it a sensible default. So this is the default. This is the default. And then perplexity, Sonar Pro, Sonar Deep Research default. All right, so now we have the list. Sonar Pro, we already have that in here somewhere, right? All right. It's actually not passing the context as from what I can see here. Okay, so this is just a synthesis. I'll look at it later. Let's just make sure that we implement this. So now what it should do in the UI here, it should give us a selector, not just a checkbox, but a selector for the model, because there can be different. And this is also why I wanted to be able to run, which is something I completely ignored, by the way, which is interesting. It was supposed to give me a way to add more different models by just making a plus button or something, and then I can add another model there. But yeah, I don't know why it did that, because it does whatever it wants. Alrighty. Yeah, I was just checking if anyone is watching this. It's me talking to the wall. Not really, huh? But that's not why we do it. I had to do this anyway. All right, so now we have Claude, Perplexity, and OpenAI. So it only shows us this when we enable it, which I guess kind of makes sense, but I don't know. I kind of would prefer to have this here, but I don't think it's worth it. Who gives a shit? I can try it, and if it annoys me, I'll fix it. All right, so Sonnet 3.7 with thinking, and then OpenAI, and OpenAI we want 03. Let's make a comprehensive thingy. So they both now have thinking enabled. What is that thing? What always people ask, how many R's are in strawberry? So we're gonna be wrong, but we'll see. Whoa. They got it right, huh? 3 R's. All right. Alrighty, so I think this is probably not what it would do with GPT-4. Let's see what they respond with. Run again. Let's see. So these are like cheaper models. You can also see that it's much faster. I thought this was supposed to fuck it up, but well, I guess we solved every problem to ever exist. All right. Okay, what the fuck was that? All right. Something wrong? So when I add it to chat, it's not actually closing, right? It's also not deleting everything anymore. All right, so there's another thing we need to fix, where it broke something that was already working before, some regression. So that's also something to just pay attention to over time. Hey, can you go in and make sure again that the modal is reset? The synthesis modal is reset every time I enter it to a default that we have discussed. So it's Sonnet 3.7 and Perplexity with Sonar Pro. And when I press insert into chat, make sure to close the modal. And yeah, that should happen automatically. Right now, it's not happening anymore. Let's see. Oh, fuck. I was too late. All right. Sometimes it does that. You can go in here and you can just grab it from here. Another thing we could think about is essentially showing the responses next to each other. The model responses. Now we're showing them underneath, but next to each other, I think they would be easier to compare. But we already have the comparison in the synthesis, so it doesn't really make sense to compare it necessarily by hand. But let's see what the motherfucker did here. Okay, so now it's reset. We do these two. We do haiku and mini and say, hello, are you there? All right. So I think we're in, no, where did I don't know when it broke. But yes, I'm here and ready to assist you. Okay, so we go insert into chat. So this works, and if we open it again, it's still there. Okay, these are reset, but the prompt is still there, which doesn't even make sense because this is the response, so it's not actually the prompt. I don't know how the fuck it did that. Make sure that the prompt is also reset. But once this is done, we have something. It's not pretty. We can, let's try that. We can even ask it to make it prettier, but I don't know if it will. That's the vibe and vibe coding. To just be like, hey, make this, I'm not vibing with this, make it nicer. All right, prompt field resets to be empty. I guess this was another pretty small change. And again, usually I keep these after each step just so that I can more easily see the changes. Because right now it's like, you don't really see, you press open diff, but it doesn't actually open the right part, I would say, in the diff. But let's see what it looks like. Very cool. All right, so now this is all fine, and we will ask it to, hey, can you make the UI in the synthesis modal a bit more user-friendly? Right now, it's pretty overwhelming with all the knobs and settings and everything. Retain the features, but make sure that we find a more or a less overwhelming way to present everything, all the settings and stuff. Let's see what it does. Commit this. Whatever, doesn't matter. It's just accordion. I feel like it wasn't an issue that wasn't there. I think the issue was that the shed CDN component wasn't there, but okay. Okay, what's the issue now? All right, so it grouped it together now, which I think is better. Advanced settings. Yeah, I guess it's fine. The prompt at the top, I think that makes more sense. And yeah, I don't always want these settings. Yeah, so I think this is less overwhelming, right? And still offers full kind of flexibility. And I think we should call it a day here. But I hope whoever was watching, wasn't a lot of people. Maybe some people will watch it afterwards on YouTube. The workflow itself is interesting, maybe useful for you. Again, I had like a full video just more focused on the exact workflow. It's here, which I'll link up somewhere. And then the main takeaway here really is like, the tool is only as good as the user is. So I still think people that are technical and that are willing to think things through still have like an advantage, at least when it comes to not just building, like, let's say a prototype, right? Like, because the tools do still make mistakes, and sometimes it's just faster to edit the code by hand, and you need to decide, okay, when is it time to add the code by hand, and when is it time to review the code, and when is it time to completely dismiss whatever the thing is doing, like when do I have to reset to a step that came before. And I think that knowledge that you have already, and the kind of domain expertise is just very helpful. But that doesn't mean that it's impossible for non-technical people to use these tools, right? It's just, I think, more a common sense thing, and being like resourceful and seeing the issues that it has, and yeah, just working with that. And it's like any tool, like the tool is only as good as the one that wields it. And a lot of the insights, they need to go into the preparation and into the prompting and the context. So I think that is something that will stay for a while, and I think it's to be expected, because the tool by itself isn't smart enough to do it, right? But yeah, let me know in the comments, any questions, anything else you want to see next. I have, as I said, a lot of these tools, these system prompts. If you want to walk through for any of these that isn't necessarily what we tackled today, I have more. I'm probably going to add more here. Just let me know, and feel free to tune in next time again, and I'll see you.